Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Are y'all ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, please find your seats. The show will begin in just 2 minutes.
Begin transmission.
This program is intended for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised.
Well, hello guys. We're having a very rare week this week. We have a video premiere that we just watched, and I'm doing a second live stream this week. So it's good to see everybody. Let's see who all has joined us here. We got Jim Largo. It's good to see you there. Jim Largo was on here way early. And we have Bjorn Jorgensen, my head wrench. Good to see you there, Bjorn. Glad you showed up. Pope, good to see you, man. I'm glad to see you have decided to come in the house tonight. So it's a very cool video. Was born too late to experience a lot of that great pop culture. Well, sound like you're a lot younger than I thought you were there, Pope. And Will McLaughlin at Wilhelm Toy and Hobby has come in. Yes, that art was great, wasn't it? And Motu Jones is here. He'll be joining us here shortly. And so will Adam from Radical Toys. And who else is in the house? Daniel Carhoonen is in the house. Yes, Adam from Radical Toys designed that intro for me, and I just love it to death. And Cape Master in the house. Hey, what's going on, Cape Master? Good to see you, man. And let's see, I guess that's everybody. So good to see y'all. I'm going to go ahead and take all the chats off the screen here, and I'm going to bring in my guests. So my first guest is Adam from Radical Toys. Hey, Adam, good to see you. and I'm going to bring in
How's
Motu.
everybody doing?
Hey, Joneser, how's it going there, bud?
What's up, everybody?
There's the main man.
That's right.
You
Well,
the
you
main
guys
doing all
watched
these intros.
the video with me. Tell me what y'all thought of it.
Dude, I love
This-
it.
Yeah,
ahead,
this
Tom.
couldn't have been a more perfect video because my mind has been so so into the mini comic stuff lately.
Right.
Anybody that's been following my my community tab section, I do a lot of dissecting of the mini comics for trivia and stuff. It's just been so fun. So this video was so perfect for today.
And what did you think about it, Anthony?
I'll second that. And I mean, this one really was special for me because I just got this bad boy in the mail today, and it happens to have that mini comic in it.
Oh, you
wow.
finally got it arrive.
Oh, that's the 40th anniversary set. Is that the one with the new CGI He-Man in it and the one?
No, it's got the
big guy. That's the big guy, isn't it?
The classic
yeah.
He-Man and Skeletor.
Are you going to be opening that on your show?
Yeah, I will, but I mean, I don't mind showing it to you guys if you want to check it out. But
no, man. Make them come over to your show to see it, man. That way you get some views, man.
I'll be filming it tonight or tomorrow. But I was just digging into it and like playing with it, and it has that mini comic that you just did in there. And it's got newer glossy.
Did you know that there were two versions of that first mini comic?
I did not know that. What were the differences?
The difference was the page count and the amount of story presented. The one I showed you was the full story, but they re-released that mini comic and they reduced the number of pages in it and took some of the story out of it.
What was removed?
Just a few pages. I can't off the top of my head remember, but it just kind of cut some filler out of it and just got it down to the basics.
Oh, that story's, I mean, pretty basic as it sits, I mean,
I agree. Now it's like 20 something pages long. It's a lot longer than you really believe it is, but I mean, the stories are quite simple. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure, but I think Glut, when he wrote those, he wrote one long story and it was chopped up into 4 parts.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was more that might.
There is actually more to the story than what you saw in the mini comics. Glut wrote a treatment called the Fighting Foemen, and our buddy, the guru over there, that Spectre Creative, he presented that, I think, at one of the Comic Cons. I can't remember, but if you go over to the Battle Round blog, the guy that runs the Battle Round blog actually has the Fighting Foemen treatment, the whole thing as Scott presented it, and you can read that there, and it's quite interesting, the Fighting Foemen treatment, and you can see different elements that were used in the mini comics are in that as well, plus more.
I always suspected you mentioned that page where He-Man mysteriously takes his clothes off and his boots off, and then he comes back later and they're all back on. I always suspected that was a continuity mistake, and then they just kind of worked it in.
I think you're right.
Stuff was in blocks,
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'm not sure what Alcala had to work with when he did those drawings and those paintings. I know that there's several different versions of the pictures that he drew. For instance, the Battle Chariot at one point, there's a picture out there and you can see it. It wasn't the chariot as it shows in that comic. It was more like a little 3-wheeled chariot with a little wheel in the front and 2 wheels in the back. As a matter of fact, if you got that Lords of Power Origins set, that was, I think, San Diego Comic-Con, or it might have been at the PowerCon. I can't remember where that was released.
Yeah, I didn't get it. This is actually my first exclusive.
Yeah. I've got that back here somewhere. I'll have to show that to you guys sometime. I've actually kind of swapped out some of the parts on the figures to make my customs. But when you open that thing up, it kind of looks reminiscent of one of these old cases
Yeah.
You know, these old figure cases like this. But when you open that thing up, behind where the figures are inside the package, there's these pictures that Axel drew that are very reminiscent of the pictures that you see that Alcala did for the mini comic. And in one of them, you see that prototype battle chariot that's a 3-wheel little tricycle little thing with the place to ride in it in the back, you know, like an old time Roman chariot. And instead of a horse, there's a little wheel in the front with big spikes all on it. It's kind of cute looking.
I could be mistaken, but I think the 2000X did an attempt at that vehicle.
Did they?
I think so, because I remember.
Well, you could be right. I watched some of that, but I never watched all of it. Now,
not on the show, just in a toy.
Okay, just in the toy.
Yeah, I never saw it on the show, but as a toy, they released it.
As far as the show goes, if you guys want to watch the 2000X show, I believe Mattel has most of the episodes up for free viewing right here on YouTube.
They do.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, I'm not trying to start a war with anybody, but I think that's how you reboot. I thought that was much better.
Yeah, I agree. That was if you go back and watch that was a much better reboot. Now, I'll say this. I don't watch it a whole lot, but I do watch it occasionally when I don't have anything else to do and I'm bored. That CGI show that they're doing on Netflix is a much better reinterpretation than He-Man than that atrocity that
I agree.
Yeah,
and I think I liked that one because I came in with low expectations.
Yes. Another thing you have to realize, that show is the future of He-Man. Whether you like it or not, it's designed and the way it looks is more appealing to kids than this stuff that we play with.
Yeah. Well, then they messed at my house because Lyric hates that one.
Well, I think Lyric has been led by you. I know what's going on there, and I fully agree with that. I like that. And that's what Origins was made for. It was made for people like you and I to buy, to play with our children.
That's exactly what we did. And he prefers the Filmation show. You know, but we've been watching it all his life, though.
I like the Filmation show too. And something that I want to make very aware to everyone is that while I like the Filmation show and it has a lot of nostalgia for me, when I was a kid, there was no Filmation cartoon when He-Man came out. So my first time with He-Man was when I got my action figures of He-Man and read the mini comics in them. And Mattel thought that we couldn't read, but that's why the Filmation cartoon was created. But I'm sorry to tell the guys at Mattel, we can read, Jack. And I remember back, I was probably 11 years old, 1982. My birthday is late. It's in September. So it was in the summer of 1982. And I used to go and visit with my older sister, who she's a half sister of mine. And she lived in Huntsville, Alabama, and I would spend the summers with her. She was 15 years older than I was, so she was grown and married, and I would go and spend my summers with her. And she took me to visit one of her friends, and this lady had a little boy who was a little younger than I was, and he had all the superpower stuff. He had the Hall of Justice, which I never had, and he had the He-Man figures, which I'd never seen before in my life. And I was attracted to those He-Man figures because they were like nothing else I'd ever seen. And he also had the mini comics that came with the figures. And I spent a lot of time reading those mini comics right there. And on the way home, we stopped at a toy store there in Huntsville. I think it was Circus World, if you remember that toy store. It was in the mall. And I went in there, and there was a He-Man figure on the shelf. And I begged and pleaded, and they bought the He-Man figure for me. and that was how I got my first He-Man figure. But those mini comics were where I learned about who He-Man was. So that's why in my play and on my channel, I say the things that I say and I do the things that I do. For instance, I made sure I got a Lee Custom Man-at-Arms head without that mustache on it. Now, I saw you guys chatting about that stash, and I know a lot of people like that mustache because they remember Filmation. And I don't disparage that at all. There's nothing wrong with that. If the Filmation cartoons were what brought you into He-Man, that's probably where your play and your storylines and your head go to, but mine don't. And one of the reasons why I wanted to create the series of in-depth analysis videos was so that I could show where my thought patterns come from. For instance, when Zoar was released, everybody kept calling Zoar she, which is fine because the sorceress would change into Zoar in the Filmation cartoon. But if you go back to the original packaging, it says he fights for He-Man. Zoar was a male bird. He was not a aspect or a avatar of the sorceress at all. He was a messenger. And if you read the Point Dread booklet that came with the playset and the Talon Fighter, which had a record in it, which you can watch that and listen to that in its entirety right here on Weird Fantastic Toy Adventures. You will see Zoar shows up in that and brings a message to He-Man from the sorceress.
Yep. Filmation really set the standard for a lot of us, especially guys like me and Joneser. So to have something like that done in an animation form would be fantastic to go back to those mini comics.
Yes. And you mentioned that you would love to see a cartoon of the mini comic storyline. That would be great. Now, stay tuned because coming up in a future episode, you're going to see one of the original He-Man ads that they did for television, where Filmation came in and did some animation for that ad, and that kind of led the way to Filmation getting the property to do the animated series. Was when they did that animated commercial for Mattel. Have you guys seen that commercial?
I don't think I ever have. I've always heard them speak about it, but I'm not sure if I've actually seen it. I didn't even realize it was released to the public.
It may not have been. Have you seen it, Joneser?
I have seen it. I think you can actually see it on YouTube.
Yes, it's available on YouTube. I'm going to rip this thing off and show it off one day.
Was it the same one that was presented to them from Mattel when they were originally starting the toy line?
If you watch the entire commercial, it starts off with a man and his children, and they're playing with the Motu toys and the Castle Grayskull and all that. And the man's narrating it, and he's saying what it's about. And then they cut to this animated sequence. It's basically Skeletor is in Castle Grayskull, and He-Man has to stop him, and Man-at-Arms and Tila are there to help him. And Skeletor sits on the throne, and he twists the throne, and the trapdoor gives way underneath He-Man, and Tila throws her spear, and He-Man grabs it, and it keeps him from falling down into the hole there. And then they come up and they defeat Skeletor, and Skeletor jumps on the sky sled and shoots off through a hole.
I'll have to see it. I may have seen what you're talking about because it does sound
and all of that was done by Filmation. However, the animation in it looks more like the toys than what they did for the actual Filmation cartoon.
Okay, gotcha.
And that bit of animation actually follows this original storyline that we're discussing today.
You know, and I wanted to add to something you were saying earlier where you discovered Masters of the Universe through the mini comics and the toys. Well, I kind of had a little bit of both worlds because my parents or my father found the figures in a dumpster. Like he was.
Yeah, I've heard that story. That's an issue. Please tell that story to the viewers, Anthony.
Well, what had happened is I was just a little tyke. I don't even know if I was 3-4 years old. I'm not even sure. But my dad and my uncle Jerry, they were working a landscaping job where they were mowing lawns and weed eating, and they found a couple toys in a dumpster. And basically what it was a He-Man and a Stratos. I imagine some kid was probably playing with his toys by the dumpster, forgot them there. And my dad, scooped them up, figured I would like them. And so I'm home playing with these toys. I've never seen anything like these things. Like in those days, they had the little Star Wars figures, which I had a few of. And this thing dwarfed Luke Skywalker. So, I mean, I was like, and I didn't know what it was. And my mom, she just happened to be flipping through the channels and she saw the cartoon and kind of went, hey, that looks a lot like the toy he's playing with. And it was. And so then that kind of got me on okay, now we know what this is. We know where to buy them and we know where to watch it on television. So then we get the action figure and it has that mini comic. And now I'm all confused because the story's all different.
Right. I'll tell you what happened with me. Do you guys remember when UHF was a thing?
That was where you could see He-Man.
Yeah, you had to turn the top channel right past 13 to the U, and then you had a bottom thing that you would turn, and it had like 30 channels on it, and then you would have to tune it in.
The antenna ears.
Yeah, because the big antenna outside wasn't picking it up.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, there was a UHF station that showed the He-Man cartoons, but it only came in sporadically. So I didn't get to watch it every day because sometimes it just wouldn't come in. You have to be old enough to remember this kind of crap, folks.
Or at least my parents had a TV like that. Where
anyway, so I remember watching that cartoon, and the first thing that I said was, "What the hell's going on with the attack track?" that was the first thing that came out of my mouth because the attack track looked like this to me. And when I first saw that attack track was when I saw the Point Dread Talon Fighter storyline. In that storybook, I saw the attack track, and I never had an attack track as a kid, but I did have the Point Dread and the Talon Fighter. And the Point Dread and the Talon Fighter showcased everything that came out in that wave in that storybook that came with it. And when I saw that Filmation cartoon, I'm like, what the heck's going on with the attack track? And then Man at Arms had this mustache, and he had armor on both sides of his body, and that kind of bothered me as a child. It doesn't bother me at all now because I know what was going on with the Filmation cartoon. But the Filmation cartoon, the way it came about, before the Filmation cartoon came out, and after Donald Glut had done the first 4 mini comics, that fellow that made the presentation, his name slips my mind right now, but he was the white-haired fellow that you saw there in the video, the one who quickly told Child World that they had the comic books. And of course, a part that I didn't say in there was at the next presentation, somebody from I think it was Toys R Us came up to him and says, well, it says on the package that this is for children ages 5. They don't read. And that's when he said, oh, did I tell you about the cartoon show we're doing? He would just sit there and lie like that. But then he would have to make good on these promises. But before that,
in the documentary that you named, The Power of Grayskull, they also
that's right. All of that's in that.
And they also mentioned it in the Netflix Toys That Made Us.
Yes. Now, Jim told me that the guys who made the Toys Who Made Us did not make Powers of Grayskull, and I believe him on that. However, a lot of the footage that you see in the Toys That Made Us is reused and used in the Power of Grayskull. As a matter of fact, some of that footage in the Toys That Made Us was expanded upon. You got to see all of it in the Power of Grayskull, where they only had cuts of it in the Toys That Made Us episode. But anyway, back to my point. After the first 4 mini comics were done, he approached several comic book companies about doing the comics for it, and DC Comics was the one that bid. Okay, So they got to do two things. The first thing that and this is what Mattel wanted. Mattel wanted them to do the mini comics that went in the figures for them, and they said, "Well, if we do that, we want to do a mini series as well." And Mattel's like, "Okay, fine." So they got the license to do I think it was a 3-issue mini series of He-Man, and they presented it as an insert into a comic book, a preview. And before that, they actually had him meet Superman in DC Comics Presents. And Motu Jones, I bet you have that issue, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. It's a very interesting issue because He-Man knows who Superman is because his mom, Marlena, had told him about Superman. Yeah, bring that up to the camera so the viewers can see that thing there, Joneser. Yes, that's it right there. All right, so that was the first appearance of Masters of the Universe and He-Man in DC Comics. The next appearance would be in that insert, that preview insert to whet your appetite for the mini series that they were going to do. And to be honest with you, if I'm not mistaken, DC Comics was the first appearance of Stratos in comic form.
Not all of them.
Zodak.
Yeah.
It was the first appearance of Zodak in comic form. And in that, they had Zodak riding in a Mobius chair-like device, just like Metron rides in the New Gods. And, of course, he comes flying in, and he monologues, this long monologue. And as a kid, it took me a while to read through that to understand what he was sitting there jabbering on about. But anyway, DC Comics took a treatment that was done, and it's online as well. And that thing is long, and there's a lot of weird stuff in there, like the fact that Beastman and Triclops were actually members of Marlena's crew on her space shuttle. And when they crashed on the planet, they got transformed into these forms. And I think even Orko's in that, but his name is Gorpo in that.
Yeah, the original name.
Yeah, that treatment was what DC Comics used when they decided to make their comic books. So you'll see a lot of stuff, and this is pre-filmation, by the way. You'll see a lot of stuff that was reused in the Filmation cartoon there in those DC Comics for the first time, such as He-Man having the alter ego of Prince Adam, King Randor, and Queen Marlena. And that was the first time that the person that we thought of as the sorceress was called Goddess. And the Goddess lived in a magical cave. And she would send Zoar out. And when Adam would see Zoar, he and Cringer would run to the magical cave. And when they went in the magical cave, he would be transformed into He-Man. And then the Goddess would send him on whatever mission that it was that she had for him. Do you recall that there, Joneser?
I do, and I also remembered these things were confusing to me, especially as a kid, because I remember Adam had a blue vest, and even without turning into He-Man, he take a weight and tied it in a knot and threw it behind him.
He was super strong all the time, and so it would be confusing to a kid. Right. Because what we didn't realize was that that whole storyline was evolving. We were watching the evolution of the storyline before our eyes.
Yeah, the material was in flux.
Yes, very much in flux. And as a matter of fact, even those DC Comics had elements in them that were a little more for the older child than it would be for the younger child, such as the fact that Adam was a womanizer. He had all these bitches hanging out with him.
He was a booze hound. He would be at the tavern drinking beer.
He's a booze hound. He's in the tavern drinking and hanging out with all the pretty girls and everything. And of course, fine with me at that age. You know, I was like 12 or 13 years old. I mean, I thought he was cool doing all that junk, you know. But I could see parents going, "Hey, wait a minute," you know, and of course, we know Lou Scheimer and Filmation weren't going to go anywhere near that direction.
No, he already had enough political issues as it was for the Filmation for people that didn't even see a frame of animation before they showed it. So yeah, he had some issues.
Hey, Christian, good to see you, man. And chat, I know I'm kind of ignoring you guys, but we see you guys over there. And I see that everybody's chatting up a storm and everybody's in here this afternoon. I'm glad to see you guys. So we're just continuing a discussion based upon the video that premiered earlier with the original He-Man mini comic. Now, the next part I'm going to release sometime in the future. I don't know when, because it all depends upon my work schedule. And you have one of those types of work schedules too, I think, Anthony. So you kind of understand where I'm coming from on that.
I'm putting in 12, 14-hour days.
Yeah, it's getting rough where I'm at too, because we don't get Saturdays off anymore. So I got to work tomorrow. But anyway, the next one that I'm going to do is called The King of Castle Grayskull. Now, I've already done one of my recreations of that using the action figures, King of Castle Grayskull. If you guys want to go back down into the history of the channel, you can watch that. But that's the one where Skeletor actually gets in the castle. He gets in there and starts controlling things, and He-Man has to go and stop him. But one of the things that's mentioned throughout those 4 mini comics are the Great Wars.
Yeah.
But it doesn't tell us what happened in those Great Wars or who. All it says is that it happened. Now, if you go back to the Fighting Foemen treatment that Donald Glut did for Mattel, it kind of does go into a little bit of that detail in that. However, if you look at the interview that Don Glut did that used to be on his webpage, but he took it down for some reason, but you can still find it on the Wayback Machine. And I'm going to post a link to that. Actually, what I'm going to do is, I can't do it right now because I'd have to go and open a YouTube page, and I'm not going to do that. But I'll put a link in the description for this video here when I go back and edit it later when we're done. But in that interview, the guy who was interviewing Donald Glut keeps asking him things, and Donald Glut would give him these short answers, and basically it was that, look, I was doing this for money, and it was work for hire, and I didn't get anything out of it except what they paid me, and so I don't care. You know, I didn't even think about that kind of stuff. I was just doing what I had to do to make a few bucks at the time. Because I think one of the things he asked him was, if you were to extend this story, where would it go? And he goes, look, I have no idea. I've never thought about it since I did it. So Donald Glut is not the place to go to try to get any of these answers. The answers are in our mind, in our own imaginations. So
I agree with that. I think the best He-Man stories are the ones that were on your living room floor when you were a kid with a toy in hand, creating your own adventures and what you did. You know?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And somebody, I think it was either Jim Largo or Wilhelm and whoever it was, I'm sorry, I don't remember, but they had mentioned that there were other storybooks that carried on this storyline, and there were. If you remember, Glut worked for Western Publishing was contacted first, and an editor there was who contacted Donald Glut. Well, Western Publishing is the people who own Golden Books. Golden Books did a lot of He-Man storybooks for children. Some of them even had records in them that narrated it. Some of them were adapted into limited stop motion animation videotapes, which were basically those storybooks retold as a little cartoon. But in those storybooks, the first few of those, the storyline is basically just a carry-on of what you saw in the mini comics. Some of them even were retellings of the stories that were in the mini comics in a way. if you remember, I think one of them was called The Trap. Another one was I can't remember off the top of my head, but anyway, all of those stories. And I did a couple of the video adaptations with the figures myself. But those stories, as Prince Adam was introduced in the Filmation cartoon, those storybooks began to carry on the Filmation continuity. And the mini comics inside with the figures began to do that as well towards the end, if you guys remember.
Yep. You should actually go back and watch 2000 X Bill, because they do have a take on the Great Wars as well. There is a little bit of fleshing out in it. You should go back and watch that cartoon. It's really good.
Yeah, I've been meaning to now. I remember when it came out, and I tried to catch episodes of it as it came out. But one of the reasons why I think it failed was because it never was on at the same time. So every time you would tune in to watch it, you would never be able to see it. Joneser knows what I'm talking about. He knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Or trying to hunt down the toys. That was a
I remember the
toys that. Yeah,
I remember the toys being on the shelf, but you'd go to one place and there'd be a few here and there'd be a few there, but they didn't sell very well either.
No,
toy line.
I had this conversation with Bill, Joneser, not that long ago. I remember 2000X, everybody hating it, despite what everyone tells you today, how much they love it.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
not what I remember.
Yeah, and there was that too, because I think a lot of that has to do with hindsight being 2020.
They've screwed up so much.
I recollect. This is not He-Man related, but it's an analogy. I recollect when the prequel trilogy for Star Wars came out, there was a lot of hatred going on for that. But now that they saw what could really happen bad to it, everybody runs back to the prequel trilogy and says, "Oh, we love you so much because you're so much better."
1,000%.
That's exactly what my thought process is too.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think that has a lot to do with it.
I'm sorry to interject, but there's one thing I wanted to ask you, Bill, and I remembered it when you were talking about the records and books where they had records that went with them. Now, I don't know if this had a book that went with it, but it was definitely a record I had when I was a kid. And I have not been able to track this thing down or figure out what it was called or what the story was. But I listened to this record so many times as a kid, I wore it out. And
wow, can you remember the plot?
I can, because I know it didn't have the same voice actors from the Filmation show, so I remember that was being a little weird. But the one thing that stuck in my little kid mind was at the end of the story, Skeletor and his evil warriors got trapped in something called the Vortex of Castle Grayskull, and they were like sucked into it. And then I just remember as a kid, I found like the little spot in the back of Castle Grayskull. It looked like a door. And to me, that was the Vortex. And if you knocked them into there, it would send them to another dimension or whatever. But I've been trying to find an audio recording of that or anything.
In my research, I found a lot of people have a lot of that stuff on YouTube. And some of it is 15, 20 years old, but it's still floating around here on YouTube. And I've got one that's got something similar to that in it, and I'll have to share that with you if I can find it there, Joneser. But you were talking about the back of Castle Grayskull. There was a little door, what looked like a little door.
Yeah,
that's behind the elevator. That's where the secret door was in Mark Taylor's original prototype of Castle Grayskull.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's where the secret door, that was a secret entrance to Castle Grayskull, was around there on the back. And when they did the classics Grayskull for the classic line of figures, that big Grayskull, the huge one, they actually put that little door back there on that castle.
See, classics was I missed the boat, and then when I found out about them, they were too rich for my blood.
Oh, they were already too rich for my blood. Speaking of too rich for blood, on the last video that I did, not the one that we're discussing today, but the one before that where I was ranting about the price of the Eternia playset, I got some interesting comments in my comment section. And I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but I was interacting with this guy today while I was at work. Every time that my phone would ding and tell me that somebody had commented, this cat comes onto my page, and the first comment that he put on there was, "Oh, well, I think I'm going to go buy 2 of these sets just to piss you off." Buy them, man. You're not pissing me off by buying those sets, man. As a matter of fact, if you're happy buying 2 sets, that makes me happy that you're happy. I don't know where people have come off that I've got sour grapes because I can't afford to get the Eternia set. Let me tell y'all something. I might make around $600 a week. I'm not telling you exactly how much I make, but just because I make $600 a week doesn't mean that I can't get the damn Eternia playset if I chose to. I choose not to. I don't have the room for it. I won't play with it because it's too big, and it's not something that was ever on my radar. Now, I know you guys, it probably is, and that I don't care. As a matter of fact, I'm happy that you're getting something that you want. What I'm sad about is the price point that you're having to pay for it.
My 2 cents on this thing, Eternia was never special to my heart. Even when I was a kid, by the time that came out, I was kind of checked out. I was probably into Turtles by then.
Same here.
I don't even remember it, but
I do remember it being offered, and I was probably 15, 16 years old, and I looked at that thing and I'm like, good God. That's what I thought in my head. Now, I'm a 15-year-old at that point. Now, I liked He-Man still. I watched the cartoons and stuff, but I saw that playset and I'm like, good God. To me, it didn't fit in. But then again, you have to remember where I come from. I come from the original mini comics. That doesn't fit in with them, in my opinion. However, that does not mean that I'm disparaging the way anybody wants to play with their toys or think of this storyline. And that's something that I don't think that either I'm not coming across right, or these people are just wanting to pick a fight. And I think they just want to pick a fight.
Second option.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, this cat comes back on the page and puts another comment on there that says, well, if you only make $600 a week, then you don't deserve to collect toys. You don't need to be collecting toys. Dude, don't tell me that because I have a lesser job than you do, or I don't make as much money as you do, that I don't deserve to be a toy collector.
It sounds to me like this cat needs to go back and watch He-Man, because He-Man was about being tolerant and accepting people and being kind. This guy missed the boat.
Yeah, this guy missed the boat entirely. As a matter of fact, he seems to think that I'm angry if you buy the Eternia playset. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my mind. I told him, I said, the things that you're saying, they're mutually exclusive from one another. They have nothing to do with the fact that I'm upset about the price of the Eternia playset, or that I don't even have the right to be upset about the price of the Eternia playset because I'm not buying it or I can't afford it. No, it's not that. It's just the fact that I think that Mattel's doing a big money grab on this thing. They're overcharging for it, and they want 5,000 backers, and they want you to pay up front for it so they can keep that $5,000. Now, I keep saying, oh, they're just going to put a pre-charge on your credit card. Yeah, and they're going to do just like Target. Every time that pre-charge expires, it's going to charge again and again and again and again.
The only reason I'm considering getting one, the only reason, is because a vintage one is so much more expensive. Exactly. And that might be the only way I'm going to get one to placehold. I'm trying to complete a vintage collection. Yeah. And that thing is way priced out for me.
Yeah, yeah.
This might be a cheap alternative. And yeah. The way I look at it.
I agree with you.
That's the only reason they might.
Nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, it makes me happy that people actually want to buy this monstrosity. Please do buy it. The only thing that I said that might be misinterpreted, I said if you do buy it, put it together and play with it.
Lyric's gonna do that.
Yes. That sounds like fun. That sounds like fun. If I had Lyric, if he was my son, I'd be doing the same thing you're doing, Anthony.
Yeah, we
I have one
Grayskull
child.
video.
She's a girl that's grown. But
yeah, he's gonna do that. He's gonna put it together. He's gonna play with it. I'm gonna just watch and beam with parental pride. Go
film
look at my kids.
Film that crap. I know they hate you putting your kids on YouTube, but screw YouTube. Film that crap and show him playing with that damn thing. I'd watch that in a heartbeat. What do you guys think in the chat? I'd watch that in a heartbeat. I'd love to see that. Wouldn't you, Adam?
Yes, because it would give me the feeling of when I was a kid playing with that
exactly.
stuff. So.
Exactly what I'm talking about. But
yeah, that's the only way they might get my
absolutely.
money.
You should do that video. Do a video where
the other thing I've been griping about. The other thing I've been griping about is the fact that I feel like that they're going to be moving this toy line over to online exclusive shit only.
I think that's where it's all headed.
I think it's headed that way. I think that our hopes of seeing Snake Mountain in a retail store, it's not going to happen. It's going to be a Mattel Creations exclusive. The same thing with Point Dread and the Talon Fighter. If we see that playset, it's going to be over on Mattel Creations. Now, the other gripe that I had was that they released the Eternia playset first. This big, huge playset that's going to cost $700 when all gets said and done, because that there's a shipping charge of $50, and then there's a surcharge of $50, and people are getting those confused and thinking they're the same thing. I thought the same thing, but I read that and read it right.
I read it too. It is
another $100 on top of your $550.
Yep.
Plus, nobody's thinking about sales tax, and they're going to tack that on there too. So you're looking at $700 or more that you're going to have to spend to get this thing. So they're doing that instead of Snake Mountain. And Snake Mountain, they could do that for, I'd buy it for $100 to $120 on that, if they included the speaker and the microphone in it.
See, and I don't know what a vintage Eternia goes for nowadays in the secondary market. I imagine a completed one, you're probably talking a couple grand or more. And with
I got my eyes open when I went over to a vintage toy store over in West Memphis, Arkansas, and I actually did a toy hunt there. There's a video on my channel of that. It's called Daycare Kids. I went in there and I took my McDonald's Playland with McDonald Land playset, Remco McDonald Land playset. 2 almost complete Remco McDonald Land playsets in there. And in my mind, I was going to trade that with this cat for Snake Mountain. He had a Snake Mountain in there that he said was mint in the box, had never been opened, and he wanted $1,200 for it. And I said,
that might be about right. If it's mint, never opened. Yeah.
That blew my mind. I was thinking $400 to $600.
Oh no. One that's I got a beat up one I could barely get for $100, and that I had to hunt down all the pieces.
Well, I'll tell you something. There's a couple of guys. Barbarossa Toys is doing it, and Talos Dream Shop does it as well. If you want replacement pieces for Snake Mountain, these guys are doing repros.
I got repro shackles. The rest of it's original.
Yeah,
but I did
the repro shackles are worth getting, even if you have the original shackles. You can take the original shackles, put them in a little baggie, and put them off the side, and put the repro shackles on it, because Barbarossa's repro shackles are resin poured, and it's that really bendy resin.
Yep,
that
that's the one
break.
I got the bendy ones.
Yeah,
from Barbarossa.
The original ones were so stiff that if you bent them, they snapped in two.
Yeah,
the same thing with the rails.
Buy a replacement, it's $40 just for one shackle.
Yeah. So that begs the question: what is the Snake Mountain going to cost when it comes out? What do you guys think?
I don't know. It's going to be too ridiculous to think about. But
Probably.
Joneser and I think we both agree that it should be in the neighborhood of $100 to $120. If it
Definitely
includes
not going to happen.
because
Not
Castle Grayskull was originally $75. The Origins Castle.
Yeah, that's true too.
$75.
That's retail though. Retail, they get
That's
so many
right.
orders, they can bring the price down. And
That's right.
exclusive, it's going to be $200-$300 minimum.
If this is a funding project, it's guaranteed to be higher.
Even that, now that makes me go, God dang, I want that, but I really don't want to spend that kind of money for it. But I will. But I'm saying I can. I've got savings in the bank. I can save up some money. I got a credit card. I can pay it off on time. But it really should be in the same price range as the Castle Grayskull Origins playset.
One could even argue less because in Snake Mountain there was nothing inside it. A net.
Well, there wasn't. But if they do an Origins one, I would hope that they would flesh it out a little bit, kind of like Super 7 did with the classics.
I'd like to see the throne and the little looking glass thing he had or something. Or,
I got a custom bone throne in that table that I think that you can see them in one of the videos that I did. Skeletor and Beastman hanging out there with that table and that bone throne. But I had to buy those from a customizer, and that was a pretty penny. And whoever that was that commented on my video, maybe I make $600 a week, but I spend my money on what I want, Jack.
Bill, you don't got to answer to no troll. You don't.
I was just gonna say the best way to deal with them is not even acknowledge their opinion.
Well, that's true, but I did invite him to come on the channel and speak civilly with me because I would like to know where he comes from by telling me that if I only make $600 a week and I live in the Mississippi Delta, that I shouldn't be a toy collector.
Bill, I don't care if you make 50 cents a week. You can do whatever you want with your hard-earned money. That's your business.
Damn right.
Yeah. So I think going back to the
Snake check this out, Pope. Bill, I tried to order the playset, but it doesn't say it's available to 2024. That's exactly right, Pope. And Pope, if you order that playset, don't order it and give it to me because I don't want you to do that. Okay, do not. And yes, the playset says that it's going to be sometime in 2024 before it's available. Yeah. 18 months, because that first they have to get 5,000 backers, 5,000 people to pledge $550 to them.
So did the price?
Then they'll tool the factory. The tools haven't even been made for this. What you're seeing on that site is a clay model, the prototype clay model. This is not the actual play set. Now they'll make the tools from what they're showing you, but the tools haven't even been made. And OBS is on the show too. Do you guys like the He-Man movie with Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella? I did. I think they made another one. No, they didn't. The sequel to that was what became Cyborg, if I'm not mistaken. They rewrote the whole thing. But yes, I do like that movie, but I like it for the cheese factor more than I do because it's any kind of a great Oscar-winning movie.
Damn.
And it's the kind of movie that you and your pals sit around, and if you're a drinking person, which I'm not anymore, you have a few drinks and then you sit there and start riffing on it like they did in Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Hey, Frank Langella was great in it.
He was. As a matter of fact, he stole every scene that he was in.
100%.
He chewed the scenery up whenever he would be on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he played that to the hilt. As a matter of fact, I think he did that for his son, if I'm not mistaken.
Because his
son was a big.
And then he said his son fell asleep at the premiere in the middle of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's plastic. It was super cheesy but enjoyable. And it's another one of those when I was a kid and I saw that, it angered me. But as an adult, I can appreciate it a whole lot more.
I think he said it was his favorite role too. Did he not?
He did. And yes, he was good as Dracula. If you ever seen Frank Langella playing Dracula, he's the same thing. He chewed up every scene he was in.
He was the best Dracula in my opinion.
Yes. Nolan, it's a great popcorn weekend afternoon flick. Exactly. It's the kind of movie that you can watch and turn your brain off while you're watching it and enjoy it.
Lyric didn't like it.
Well, I can understand when you're a kid, you can't appreciate that kind of cheese.
He liked Gwildor. He liked some parts of it, but he just kept asking me, "Where's Prince Adam? Where's Orko?"
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the same questions that I asked myself when I watched that movie. I mean, where's all the cool stuff?
Yeah, they didn't have the budget to do Orko.
A matte painting of Castle Grayskull that didn't even look like Castle Grayskull. And that's all we got. But
that's why we got Gwildor, because they didn't have the budget to do Orko.
Yeah, well, that's the whole reason that the movie ended up being what it was. They were running out of money. They was running out of money when they was making it.
I will say I enjoyed the Blade character. He was a lot of fun.
Yes, Pope, you don't really want to get me into vintage obscure movies because you know where I go on those. And it's not a pretty place.
Same.
Let's see. OBS says, people take movies like that too serious. Just enjoy them for being cheesy fun. That's exactly right, Denise. And Nolan said, yep, I think we all said that. And Denise loves Blade. Yeah, there was a Blade in that. It wasn't the Marvel Blade, but he was a character. And I think they made a figure of him, if I'm not mistaken.
He's actually the stunt coordinator too. He
was the guy. He was the guy that taught Dolph Lundgren how to sword fight for that movie.
That's cool.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Yes, I remember that as well. There, Lario.
The loincloth was very cold too. To wear that.
But yeah, what have we been on? We've been on about an hour, guys, and we've talked about a lot of stuff. We went from the mini comics to all kinds of obscure stuff here towards the end, and even into the He-Man movie. But the next in-depth analysis that I'm going to be doing will be on the King of Castle Grayskull. I'll do the same thing in that one. There won't be an introduction because there's not necessary for me to go over how those comics came to be written. We'll just dig right into the comic, and we'll zoom in on the pictures and see if we can see anything in the backgrounds that are fun and interesting, just like we did in this one. And I hope to see each and every one of you there. You guys got anything else you would like to add?
If you haven't seen Bill's mini comics videos that he's done before, you're missing out. And if you haven't checked out Adam's channel, Radical Toys, you're definitely missing out. That's all I got.
Exactly. And look, if you guys are not subscribed to Motu Joneser, you're missing out, because that is one of the most fun Masters of the Universe's channels that there's out there. And if you want to get up-to-date geek news about the toys as they're coming out, you need to be subscribed to Adam, because Adam has the time, the energy, and the ability to show you these things as they're coming out. I mean, while I'm at work, Adam's busy making videos showing me things that I didn't know that was out there by the time I get home from work. And Adam is a wonderful cartoonist. Tune into his channel and you can see his cartoon abilities.
Absolutely.
And it was fun being with everybody.
We got live stream.
You guys have an interesting evening, and Joneser and Adam, y'all stick around for a minute. We'll chat after the show in the green room, okay?
Sure.
All right, so this is another one down for the count. Glad everybody showed up. Please come back and join me next time, and we'll see y'all again. And remember, together we shall triumph.
Special thanks to these supporters on Patreon. Without your help, these adventures would not be possible. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's adventure, please hit like and subscribe and share the video.